Picture this, you walk into a room and everybody's talking, everybody's showing off, everybody's trying to convince the world they're about to make it big. They're loud, they're flashy, they're announcing dreams they haven't even started working on yet. But then in the corner, there's someone quiet. They're not saying much, not bragging, not chasing attention. And at first, people overlook them, maybe even underestimate them. But what they don't realize is that silence is dangerous because behind that calm face, behind that quiet energy, something is being built. And when it finally comes out, it doesn't whisper, it roars. That's the difference between talking about success and living it. See, success is not about how loud you are when you start. It's about how undeniable you are when you finish. The world doesn't remember the promises, it remembers the proof. That's why the people who shock everyone are the ones who move in silence, the ones who stay focused while others chase applause. And when they finally step forward, they don't just enter the room, they change the whole atmosphere. That's the kind of success that doesn't need an introduction because the results speak louder than any words ever could. When Jay-Z said, "Never tell people what you do," he was highlighting one of the most underrated truths about success, protection of vision. Most people fail not because they lack skills or potential, but because they expose their plans to the world before those plans are strong enough to stand on their own. When a dream is still forming, it's like a flame on a candle, one small gust of negativity, one careless comment, one look of doubt. And that flame can be blown out before it ever grows into a fire. The moment you speak too soon, you invite outside energy, and not all of that energy is good. Some people will discourage you, some will secretly envy you, and some will take what you shared and use it against you. Jay-Z built his empire by keeping his moves private until they were undeniable. Silence became his armor, and that's why his success often felt like it came out of nowhere, because nobody saw the groundwork he was laying until the results were already too loud to ignore. Protecting your vision means knowing that it's sacred. Not everybody deserves access to your dreams, and not everybody will understand your grind. When you tell people too early, you risk opening the door to their opinions, doubts, and criticism, and those can sink into your mind like poison if you're not careful. Words have weight, and hearing the wrong words at the wrong time can shake your confidence. Silence, on the other hand, gives you space to focus, to nurture your ideas, to build without the noise of outside voices. Think about how many people make big announcements about what they're going to do, only to lose motivation once they've gotten applause for the intention. That false validation tricks the brain into thinking it's already achieved something, and the hunger to actually execute disappears. Jay-Z avoided that trap by letting results do the talking. And in doing so, he never lost the fire that kept him moving forward. Keeping your vision private doesn't mean you isolate yourself from everyone, but it does mean you become selective about who you let in. Not every ear deserves your secrets. Not every mind deserves your blueprint. Share only with those who contribute to the vision, who encourage without judgment, and who push you forward rather than weigh you down. Silence is more than a strategy. It's protection and it's power. The less people know, the more control you have, because you're not wasting energy defending your choices or explaining your path. You're putting all that energy where it belongs, into the work itself. And when the work is done, when the foundation is strong, when the results are visible, you won't need to speak at all. The vision will reveal itself undeniable and unshakable, and by then it will be too powerful for anyone to stop. That's the essence of Jay-Z's wisdom. Never tell people what you do. Protect your vision until it's ready to shine. Let results do the talking is one of the most powerful lessons you can learn from Jay-Z's journey. In a world where people are obsessed with telling everyone what they're about to do, posting their every move, and seeking validation before they've achieved anything, the ones who truly rise are the ones who stay quiet and let their work speak for them. Jay-Z didn't waste time trying to convince people of his greatness. He showed them through consistent action, through music that dominated the charts, through business ventures that shifted culture, and through deals that proved his vision was bigger than most people could imagine. Results silence doubt in a way that words never can. When people see the evidence, when they see the numbers, when they see the empire you've built, they can't argue with it. Words can be challenged, promises can be ignored, but results are undeniable. The problem with talking too much about what you're going to do is that it gives people an opening to dismiss you or discourage you before you've even begun. And once you've put those words out there, you also put pressure on yourself to live up to them. And that pressure often comes from the wrong place, the need to prove yourself to others instead of the desire to execute for yourself. Jay-Z understood that the energy he put into convincing people of his plans was energy stolen from the actual work. And that's why he rarely explained his moves. He would just make them. By the time people heard about his ventures, they were already in motion, already successful, already making an impact. That's why his success always seemed bigger. It wasn't about building hype, it was about building reality. Results are also the ultimate credibility. You don't have to tell people who you are when your actions have already shown it. You don't have to declare that you're great when greatness is visible in your work. Jay-Z didn't have to argue with critics. He just kept producing music that broke records, deals that shifted industries, and projects that inspired others to think bigger. That silence created shock because people never saw it coming. And that shock created respect, because people realized they were dealing with someone who didn't play by ordinary rules. Letting results do the talking also builds resilience. It trains you to focus on execution instead of noise, to stay disciplined even when nobody is clapping, and to trust the process even when nobody understands it. It teaches you patience because results take time, and in that waiting period, you learn to value the grind more than the applause. At the end of the day, anyone can talk, but only the work proves who you are. Jay-Z's life is proof that when you stop announcing and start building, when you stop seeking validation and start producing results, the world has no choice but to listen. Because the loudest voices voice in the room is always success itself. Every time you stop to explain what you're doing, you're giving away energy that should have been invested in the actual work. Jay-Z understood that clearly. He didn't need to convince people of his vision. He needed to execute it. Too many people fall in the trap of over-explaining their dreams and goals to people who will never understand them. And in the process, they waste time and emotional strength defending ideas instead of building them. Explaining is draining because it forces you into a position of seeking validation, when in reality, validation isn't necessary if you truly believe in what you're doing. The more you explain, the more you open yourself up to criticism, doubt, and unnecessary opinions that can chip away at your confidence. Jay-Z moved differently because he valued his energy. He didn't have to tell you why he made a decision. He didn't have to justify his strategy. He simply executed and let the world witness the outcome. By doing that, he kept control of his narrative. The moment you start explaining to people, you hand over some of your power, because you're given room to judge and question something that wasn't meant for them to understand. People only see from their perspective, and often their perspective is limited by fear, envy, or small thinking. If you keep stopping to explain your path, you risk shrinking your vision to fit their understanding, and that's a dangerous compromise. Energy is one of the most valuable resources you have when building anything meaningful. Jay-Z poured his energy into his craft, his business moves, his legacy, not into convincing people to believe in him. And the truth is, even if you explain yourself perfectly, some people will still doubt you, some will still criticize, some will still try to pull you down. That's why explaining doesn't just waste energy, it creates unnecessary battles. Instead of fighting those battles, you could be creating something so undeniable that it doesn't need explanation. Silence becomes your advantage because it keeps you focused, it keeps you building, and it keeps your energy exactly where it belongs on execution when you stop explaining. You also train yourself to live for your own standards instead of other people's expectations. You stop worrying about whether they understand, whether they approve, whether they support you. You replace all of that with a sharper focus on whether you're actually making progress, whether you're aligned with your vision, whether your work is moving forward. That's just freedom. That's power. That's why Jay-Z didn't waste his voice defending his decisions. He let the outcomes defend them for him. And once the results appeared, there was no room left for doubt because success explains itself in a language everyone understands. In the end, your energy is your most valuable currency. And if you spend it explaining, you'll have less to spend on creating. Protect it. Save it. And let your work speak the only explanation you'll ever need. Mystery creates power because the less people know about you, the more they have to wonder. Jay-Z built a career and an empire by mastering the art of silence, letting people guess while he worked in the shadows, and then shocking the world when he finally revealed his moves. When you're mysterious, you keep people off balance. They can't predict your next step. They can't copy your blueprint. And they can't block you because they don't even know what direction you're going. Mystery isn't about hiding out of fear. It's about creating leverage. It's about staying in control of your narrative and never giving away your hand until you're ready to play it. In business, in art, in life, the ones who keep quiet hold the most power because curiosity makes others pay attention. While silence forces them to respect the outcome, when it arrives, Jay-Z didn't broadcast every deal he was working on. He didn't announce every plan he had in the pipeline. And that's why his achievements always seemed so much bigger when they appeared. People would look up and suddenly he owned a record label, a fashion line, a sports agency, a streaming platform. The mystery gave those moves weight. If he had spoken about them beforehand, people would have doubted him. Critics would have tried to tear it down. Competitors would have tried to get in the way. But because he kept it all under wraps, the results came as shockwaves. That surprise factor amplified his influence and added to his legend. When you live mysteriously, people don't just see your success, they feel it. Because it arrives with an element of awe they weren't expecting. Mystery also protects your vision from being diluted. When you reveal too much, people start offering opinions that you never asked for, and those opinions can get in your head. But when you keep your plans to yourself, they remain pure. You're free to execute without distraction, without comparison, and without pressure to meet anyone else's expectations. That clarity gives you strength. It allows you to take risks that others can't predict, and it ensures that every move you make has maximum impact when it's revealed. Jay-Z understood that strategy. He let curiosity work for him instead of against him. While others wasted time talking, he let silence build anticipation, and that anticipation multiplied the effect of his success. When it finally arrived, there's also an element of respect tied to mystery. People can't underestimate you if they don't know your full capacity, and they can't dismiss you if they're unsure what you're capable of. By keeping his plans private, Jay-Z maintained control of how the world perceived him, never letting critics define him, never letting doubters box him in. The mystery made him untouchable. It's a lesson that applies to anyone building something meaningful. The less you reveal, the more powerful you become, because mystery forces people to pay attention. And when you finally let your results speak, they hit harder than words ever. Good talking breeds pressure, because the moment you start announcing your goals and sharing your plans with everyone, you create expectations that may not align with your own timeline or process. Jay-Z knew that when you talk too much about what you're doing, you give people something to measure you against, and that turns your journey into a performance rather than a personal mission. Instead of building quietly and moving at your own pace, you begin to feel like you owe the world updates and progress reports, and that pressure can weigh you down. You end up working to prove people wrong or to impress them, rather than working because you're passionate. Talking too early shifts your focus from the craft to the crowd, and when that happens, The authenticity of your work suffers. Jay-Z avoided that trap because he understood that the pressure of outside eyes can kill creativity. When people know what you're working on, they start asking questions, they start giving opinions, and they start forming judgments. Even if you don't realize it, those judgments can get into your mind and influence your actions. You may feel rushed to deliver before you're ready, or you may hold back from experimenting because you're afraid of failing in front of an audience. Talking makes the process heavier than it needs to be because you're carrying not only your own expectations, but everyone else's as well. That kind of pressure leads to stress, anxiety, and sometimes even abandoning the project altogether. Silence, on the other hand, removes that burden. When you work in private, you're free to fail, free to adjust, free to experiment without fear of embarrassment. That freedom is where real growth happens. The problem with announcing your goals is that the applause you receive at the beginning can be misleading. Neuroscience even shows that when you talk about your goals, your brain gets a small hit of dopamine that makes you feel as if you've already accomplished something, and that can reduce your drive to actually do it. Talking creates a false sense of achievement that robs you the hunger to keep pushing. Jay-Z avoided that trap by keeping his plans close to his chest. He didn't need validation from others. He needed results. And he didn't let words get in the way of execution. By staying silent, he kept all of that energy bottled up, fueling the work instead of letting it leak out in conversations and empty declarations. Pressure can be useful when it comes from within, when it's about living up to your own standards and your own vision. But when it comes from talking too much, it becomes destructive. Jay-Z chose silence because silence kept the focus on the mission, not the noise. It gave him space to grow without judgment, to build without distraction, and to reveal only when the time was right. Talking breeds pressure, but silence breeds freedom. And in that freedom, you gain the clarity and strength to let your work speak louder than any words ever could. Success hits harder in surprise because there's a special kind of power in showing the world something it never saw coming. Jay-Z built his empire by working quietly, keeping his moves private, and only revealing them when they were already complete. That strategy made every accomplishment feel bigger because it wasn't just success, it was a shockwave. People didn't have time to doubt, criticize, or block him along the way because by the time they found out, it was already done. When you move in silence and unveil your results without warning, you control the narrative. You take away the chance for others to influence your process and you maximize the impact of the outcome. People are forced to respect the finished product because it speaks for itself louder than any promise ever could. There's something unforgettable about being underestimated and then proving everyone wrong with undeniable success. When you keep your goals quiet, people may assume you're not doing much, but that works to your advantage. They don't see the late nights, the sacrifices, or the grind, and that invisibility becomes fuel. It allows you to work without distractions, without pressure, and without the weight of their expectations. Then when the results finally appear, they land with the force of surprise. That element of shock makes the achievement more memorable and more powerful because nobody was prepared for it. Jay-Z mastered this by consistently revealing moves that seemed to come out of nowhere. Whether it was a business deal, a new project, or a cultural shift, he made sure the world only saw the end result. And that made his presence feel larger than life. Surprising people with success also teaches you discipline. It forces you to commit to the work for yourself, not for applause or validation. When nobody knows what you're doing, the only accountability you have is to yourself, and that builds an internal strength that can't be shaken by outside noise. You're no longer working for likes, comments, or approval. You're working because the vision matters to you. That self-driven mindset ensures that when the results finally come, they hit deeper because they weren't built for show. They were built for purpose. And purpose-driven results always carry more weight than hype-driven ones. Another advantage of surprising people with success is that it inspires respect even from doubters. Critics may dismiss your words, but they can't dismiss a reality that's standing right in front of them. People may question your abilities when you talk about your goals, but once those goals are achieved, their opinions no longer matter. The shock of seeing something complete silences everyone, whether they supported you or not. That's why success in silence hits so hard. It doesn't leave room for debate. By the time the world sees it, it's undeniable. And the impact is magnified by the surprise. Jay-Z knew that silence wasn't just about protection, it was about timing. And when the timing is right, the results hit like thunder, shaking everything around them at the end of the day. This entire message comes down to one truth: real power, real success, real greatness is never about what you tell people, it's about what you show them. Talking is easy. Anyone can sell dreams, anyone can paint pictures with words. But the ones who actually shift the game are those who let their work speak louder than their voice. You don't owe the world an explanation. You don't owe people a roadmap of your next move. What you owe yourself is the discipline to stay focused, the patience to stay quiet, and the courage to build without validation. Because when you finally arrive, when your vision becomes reality, there will be no debate, no argument, no doubt. The results will scream your name louder than you ever. So stop wasting your energy proving yourself to people who don't even matter. Stop announcing steps you haven't taken yet, and start pouring everything into the grind that will make you undeniable. Move in silence, protect your vision, trust the process, and let your success introduce you to the world in a way no words ever could. Good luck on your journey. Stay focused, stay patient, and thank you for listening.